she said. "I'm not your housekeeper." When I asked her to help tidy up after keeping our place immaculate for 3 years, I replied, "Neither am I." She returned to find a cleaner shining my new partner's shoes. In the military, you learn a particular kind of order and discipline. It's not just about making your bed or polishing your boots. It's a mindset. It's about realizing that small, consistent efforts prevent major failures down the line. It's about valuing your surroundings, your equipment, and yourself. During my 8 years in the Army, that discipline kept both me and my team safe. Over the past 3 years, it has simply kept my house tidy, a task I apparently handled alone. I live in a 2-bedroom home that I purchased with my savings a year before I met my ex-girlfriend, Brenda. It is my sanctuary, a space of order amidst chaos. My job as a project manager at a large construction firm is demanding, but I've always made time to care for my home. Every Saturday morning, I would do a thorough cleaning, floors, bathrooms, kitchen, everything. During the week, I handled the dishes after dinner, took out the trash, and ensured the laundry was done. I did this because I take pride in my home and believed I was building a life with a partner. Brenda did not share my perspective. She treated our home like a self-cleaning hotel. Clothes were discarded where they were taken off, and dishes would sit in the sink for days. Her version of helping was to push the clutter on her side of the bedroom into a somewhat neater pile. For 3 years, I tolerated it. I would talk to her about it, but she would just laugh it off. "Oh, Alex, you're just so much better at this than I am," she'd say, as if her incompetence were a compliment. I convinced myself it was a small price to pay for the good times. Now I realize I wasn't paying a price. I was just paying for everything. The breaking point didn't occur on a typical day. It came after one of the most exhausting weeks of my career. We had a significant project deadline, and I had been working 14-hour days, surviving on stale coffee and adrenaline. I came home last Friday night feeling completely drained. All I wanted was a hot shower and a quiet evening. The house was a mess. Brenda had apparently hosted friends the night before. There were empty wine glasses and plates on the coffee table, throw pillows scattered on the floor, and the kitchen looked as if a disaster had struck. Normally, I would have sighed and started cleaning, but that night, I didn't have the energy. Brenda was in the bedroom getting ready to go out again, putting on makeup and humming to a song on the radio. I stood in the doorway, exhausted. "Hey, Brenda," I said, my voice rough from fatigue. "I'm really worn out. Could you do me a favor? Just load the dishwasher and wipe down the counters. It would be a huge help." She didn't even turn around. She just glanced at my reflection in her vanity mirror and scoffed, a short, sharp sound. "Seriously, Alex, I'm getting ready to go out. I have plans. I don't have time to clean your kitchen." "My kitchen," I said, a dangerous edge creeping into my voice. "This mess is from you and your friends." That's when she finally turned to face me, her expression one of pure annoyance. "Look, I told you I'm not a 1950s housewife. I'm not your maid." 3 years of me quietly tidying up her messes. 3 years of me maintaining the home she treated like a crash pad. 3 years of doing the work of 2 people. And that was her response. The line wasn't just drawn, it was etched into my soul. The fatigue I felt was replaced by a sudden, shocking clarity. My military training kicked in. When faced with an impossible situation, you don't argue. You assess, adapt, and act. I looked at her perfectly applied makeup and her expensive dress, one I knew had been bought with my money. I glanced back at the disaster in the kitchen behind me. Then I looked back at her. "Neither am I," I said. I turned around, walked into the living room, and sat down on the couch right in the middle of the mess. She stared at me for a moment, expecting a fight. When she didn't get one, she rolled her eyes, grabbed her purse, and left, slamming the door behind her. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I took action. I didn't clean the mess. That was a monument to her disrespect, and I was going to leave it for her to see. Instead, I opened my laptop and spent an hour researching professional cleaning services in my area. I found a highly rated, bonded, and insured company and booked their most thorough service. A 4-hour deep clean scheduled for exactly 1 week later. Then I went to the garage. Tucked away on a high shelf were the sturdy moving boxes from my last move before I met her. I brought them inside and began to pack, not my things, but hers. I started in the living room, gathering up her magazines, trinkets, and her collection of scented candles that she never used. When she came home around 2 a.m., smelling of perfume and wine, she was surprised to see me awake. She was even more surprised to see a stack of neatly taped boxes in the corner of the room. "What is all that?" she asked, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "You said you're not my maid," I replied calmly, looking up from my laptop. "And I said I'm not yours. It seems we're not compatible as roommates. This partnership has fundamentally failed, so I made a decision. It's time for you to move out." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing. She thought I was joking, that this was some kind of dramatic overreaction to her comment. "You're kicking me out over a silly comment because I didn't want to do the dishes?" "No," I said, closing my laptop and giving her my full attention. "I'm ending our arrangement because you showed that you see any contribution to this household as a task for a servant. For 3 years, I've been that servant, and my service is officially over. You have 1 week, 7 days, to pack the rest of your things and leave my house." She stood there, stunned into silence. For 3 years, I had operated a 5-star hotel for a permanent guest who never tipped. I had just handed her the bill, and the hotel was closing. Update 1. The week that followed was a slow, painful learning experience for Brenda on the difference between a partner and a provider. She spent the first 2 days in a state of defiant denial. She refused to pack and tried to act as if everything was normal, making small talk and asking what I wanted for dinner. I responded with polite one-word answers and made myself a sandwich. She clearly believed this was a bluff, a dramatic gesture, and that I would eventually get over it and things would return to the way they were. I didn't get over it. I was steadfast. I slept in the spare bedroom, went to work, came home, and if she was there, I would go to my workshop in the garage to work on my projects. I didn't engage or argue. Each evening, I would give her a simple, calm update. "You have 5 days left to arrange for your things to be moved. You have 4 days left." The calm, consistent pressure was much more effective than yelling could have been. By day 3, her denial began to crack and anger set in. She accused me of being a controlling monster who was trying to punish her for one little comment. "It's not the comment, Brenda," I told her coolly. "It's the truth behind it. It's the complete lack of respect for me and for this home." While she cycled through her stages of grief, I systematically untangled our lives. I called the credit card company and had her supplementary card canceled. The customer service representative, a very helpful woman, asked if I wanted a rundown of recent charges. I said yes. It turned out that Brenda had spent over $2,000 in the last month on clothes, salon visits, and expensive lunches with friends, all while I was working overtime to support our life. The information wasn't surprising, but it was validating. It proved I was making the right decision. I changed the passwords on all our shared streaming accounts and took her off my car insurance policy for the vehicle she drove, which was in my name. I was erasing her from my life, one logistical step at a time. On the final day, day 7, I came home from work to find the house exactly as it had been. Her things were still everywhere. She hadn't packed a single item. She was sitting on the couch watching television, a defiant look on her face. She was calling my bluff. She truly believed I didn't have the conviction to follow through. I stood in the living room for a moment, then nodded. "Okay," I said. "I gave you a week." I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hi, is this Rapid Response Movers?" "Yes, my name is Alex. We spoke earlier this week. I need to confirm my appointment for this evening." Brenda's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "Who is that? Who are you calling?" "I'm calling the movers I put on standby 5 days ago," I said. "I hoped you would handle this yourself with some dignity. You chose not to, so I'll handle it for you." An hour later, a large moving truck pulled up to the house. 2 professional movers came to the door. I had already prepared a specific list for them. Every item of women's clothing, every pair of shoes, all the contents of the bathroom vanity, and all the decorative items I knew she had purchased. They were to pack it all. Brenda had a complete meltdown. She screamed, cried, and accused me of being the cruelest man alive. She tried to block the movers from entering her room, but they were professionals. They stood there patiently, waiting for me to handle the situation. "Brenda," I said, my voice cutting through her hysteria, "you have 2 choices. You can step aside and let these gentlemen do the job I'm paying them to do, or I can call the police and have you removed from my property for trespassing. Since you haven't paid rent or contributed to this household in 3 years, you have absolutely no legal right to be here. The choice is yours." She realized I wasn't bluffing anymore. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing as the movers efficiently and impersonally packed up her life. She made frantic calls to her friends, then finally to her parents. From her side of the conversation, It was clear no one was rushing to help her. When everything was loaded onto the truck, the crew leader asked me for the destination address. Brenda, speaking through tears, provided her parents' address. Her final humiliation was retreating back home like a teenager who had broken curfew. After the truck pulled away, I was left alone in my house. It was a mess from the hurried move, but it felt cleaner than it had in years. The very next morning, the professional cleaning service I had booked arrived. For 4 hours, a team of 2 cleaners scrubbed my house from top to bottom. They cleaned the floors, washed the windows, and sanitized the kitchen and bathrooms. When they finished, the house didn't just look clean, it felt clean. It was a complete reset. I wasn't just cleaning my house. I was cleansing my life, preparing the foundation for whatever came next. Final update. It's been 1 year since what my friends now refer to as the Great Cleanout. The months following Brenda's departure were filled with profound peace and productivity. With my home life organized and stress-free, I found I had more energy and focus for my job. I was promoted to Senior Project Director 6 months ago, a position that came with a significant salary increase and more reasonable hours. My house remained impeccably clean thanks to a fantastic weekly cleaning service run by a woman named Maria. For the first time, I had a home that was a place of rest, not a source of endless work. About 8 months ago, I met someone new. Her name is Clara. I met her at a charity event, a home-building project for veterans. I volunteered my project management skills, and she, an architect, offered her design expertise. We connected over blueprints and power tools. She is intelligent, driven, independent, and has a laugh that can fill a room. She respects what I do for a living because she is a builder, too. We started dating, and it was different from the very start. It was a partnership of equals. 4 months ago, Clara and I decided to take the next step. She sold her small condo and moved in with me. We didn't just merge our lives, we built a new one together. She brought her own style to the house, and I loved it. We cook together, clean together, and share our days, goals, and dreams. It's easy. Now for the part of the story that brings everything full circle. Last week, a piece of mail for Brenda arrived at my house by mistake. It was from a collections agency. I had no interest in seeing her, so I texted her to let her know she could pick it up from my front porch at 10 a.m. on Saturday, a time I knew Clara and I would be out. Apparently, Brenda decided to come early. On Saturday morning around 9 o'clock, Clara and I were just getting ready to leave. Maria, our housekeeper, was finishing her weekly cleaning. She always ends her work by polishing our shoes for the upcoming week, a small old-fashioned service I find incredibly thoughtful. As I was grabbing my keys, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Brenda standing on my porch. She looked different, thinner, tired. The confident, defiant woman from a year ago was gone, replaced by someone who looked worn down by life. She opened her mouth to speak but froze, her eyes looking past me into my living room. I knew what she was seeing. She saw Maria on her hands and knees, carefully applying polish to a pair of beautiful, elegant leather boots, Clara's boots. Just then, Clara came down the stairs looking chic and professional in her weekend attire. "Oh, Maria, you don't have to do that every week," she said with a warm smile. "But thank you." Maria smiled back. "It's my pleasure, Miss Clara. They're all finished." Clara walked over, picked up her freshly polished boots, and then noticed Brenda standing on the porch. She gave me a questioning look. "Brenda, this is my partner, Clara," I said calmly. "Clara, this is Brenda. She's here to pick up some mail." Brenda couldn't speak. She just stared at the scene before her. This was the consequence she could never have predicted. It wasn't just about me being with someone new. It was about the entire picture. Her replacement wasn't a new maid. She was a successful, equal partner. The housekeeper wasn't there to serve a man. She was there to maintain a home for 2 busy professionals who valued their time and respected each other. The polished shoes weren't a symbol of servitude. They represented a life so well managed, so successful, that such small luxuries were simply part of the weekly routine. A life she had thrown away because she was too lazy and too proud to load a dishwasher. Clara, sensing the awkwardness, politely took the letter from the mail table and handed it to Brenda. "Here you are," she said. "Have a good day." I said nothing. I just gave Brenda a final neutral nod and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her walk away. She didn't look back. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that she's still living with her parents, working a retail job she despises. She constantly complains about how unfair life is and how I overreacted and ruined everything for her. She still doesn't understand. I didn't ruin her life. She had a winning lottery ticket in her hand and threw it away because she didn't feel like scratching it off. Later that day, Clara and I were working in the garden together, our hands covered in dirt. She stopped, looked at me, and said, "You know, for a guy who hires a housekeeper, you're not afraid to get your hands dirty." "Some work is a chore," I replied, smiling at her. "And some work is a joy." For the first time in a long while, my life felt filled with joy, not chores. The ultimate revenge wasn't just kicking her out, it was building a better life, a life of true partnership in the clean, orderly space she left behind.